What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. One, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. Two, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And three, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353. My guest today is Suzy Whaley, and a lot of you are going to know Suzy because she is the first ever female president of the PGA of America. But what you might not be aware of is how many great things that Suzy has done in and around this game that we all love to play. Not only has she played the LPGA Tour, she is one of the best teachers in the country. She's in the Golf Digest and LPGA Top 50 instructors. She's a Golf Top 100 teacher in America. And she is currently the PGA Director of Instruction at the Country Club of Mirasol in Palm Beach Gardens and for Suzy Whaley Golf. On top of that, she has a wonderful family, has raised two great daughters, and is a great wife to her husband, Bill. Now, a lot of you might be asking yourself, how does she find time to do all this, and how can she be so successful at so many things? Well, we just happen to get into all these things and so much more in today's interview. So all you have to do to find out the answers are sit back, relax, and listen to my conversation with PGA of America President Suzy Whaley. Okay, Suzy Whaley, Madam President, welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm very, very happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
So a lot of friends, industry people we work with, or I work with, are around. A lot have been asking me how I was able to get the president of the PGA of America to come on the show. And I tell them that I knew you back when you still had time to play golf.
I still have time to play golf. I love to play golf. I just make that a priority. But did you tell him it's because you're such an incredible player and that thankfully you were there when my daughter was at IJGA? You should have told them the truth.
Well, I remember those days, and it was back then play a lot more. But lot of things in life have changed then, especially for you, and a lot of good things. I can't wait to get into them this evening. One of the questions is, I put it on social media, right, that you're going to be coming on, and one of the questions from one of the lady pros in the area was, please ask her this, that you're a mom, obviously you're a wife, you're a teacher, and more or less a business owner, you're obviously president of the PGA. Where do you get your energy from?
Coffee. No, I totally understand that question. I get asked it a lot. And for me, I'm just a person who super fortunate because I actually really love what I do. And that gives me energy right out of the gate. So whether it's my PGA stuff or whether it's coaching or whether it's being with my children or my husband, I'm just blessed. I like it all. So I can wake up with a super positive attitude, ready to go. How I maintain the energy through the day, that I just like one foot in front of the other. And I know that sounds too simplistic, but whatever I am doing in the moment I'm doing it, I try to give it 500%. And then I go to the next. So if I'm teaching or coaching hour to hour to hour to hour, I want the person in front of me, I want their time to be just as valuable as the person that came before them. And I want them to feel like I have my full attention on them. When I'm with my family, I try desperately to do the same thing. No emails, try to keep the phone down, try to be really with them and present with them. And then if I'm doing PGA of America stuff, I try to stick to that. And it's hard. It's really hard to compartmentalize and stay where I am in the moment. But I find that that's how I get the most done. And that's how I feel successful when I go to bed at night. So I don't stress out about what I didn't get done. I hope that makes sense.
Yes,
but I think
it makes total
managing
sense.
this work-life balance, I think that's a farce, right? People talk about that all the time. Like, oh, how do we achieve work-life balance? I don't know that that's possible every day to have it equally weighted. I just think for me, it's more about, being as present as I possibly can in the moment I'm in. And sometimes that might be 80% family and 20% work. And sometimes it might be 80% work and 20% family. But when I'm with my family, they know I'm with them and are completely understanding of that, as are my friends. So I think everybody has a lot on their plates, not just me. But that's the way I manage it, and that's the way I have joy in it. And I think if you find joy in your day, it creates energy.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine not long ago, and he was talking about what's called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And
Yeah.
I think I'm pushing 50, and I don't see it I don't experience it as much, but I can definitely see that with the younger generation, with the technology and the phones and the social media and all that stuff, that it's like, that's got to be something. And you're a mom of a girl, girls in their 20s. How do you go about teaching them that when that's something that you really maybe didn't have to experience yourself?
Yeah, I think we have to realize that those aren't going away, right? Phones
Mm-hmm.
aren't going away. That push to social media is not going away. It's how they communicate. It's how they share experiences. It's how they build community. But what we're finding is, people are lonely with all that happening. And the reason why is some of that community obviously isn't one-on-one. It's not togetherness. It's togetherness in a way, right? And that's a good thing, that people can reach out and connect with people from all over the place. But I just tell I tell my children a story, and now they're both young adults, obviously, but we have a picture from the PGA Championship from I want to say it's 2008 or 9. And it's of Tiger, and it's everybody behind Tiger watching a shot. And the PGA of America has this picture. Everybody's watching him hit, which that's obvious, right? They all go to a golf tournament, you watch them hit. We have a picture from Bellerive at the PGA Championship, and everybody's watching through a phone, right? There isn't one person watching that isn't looking and taping through a phone. And I think that's so compelling because they're actually there, standing there, but they're not watching, right? They're more intent on sharing than they are of living it. And I think that's just part of our times. But I think if you're aware of it, I would hope that oftentimes when you're actually present at the Super Bowl or the PGA Championship or at the Ryder Cup, you actually put the phone down and actually watch it, because you're the one that has the opportunity of being there in the space in the moment in time you're in it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for human interaction. Whatever, if you're teaching or coaching on a lesson tee, or if you're in the pro shop, the human interaction still plays a major role, right? I remember hearing or seeing that someone asking, I think it was a blogger convention, and it was in Las Vegas, and they said, well, if they're bloggers, why don't they just do it all over the computer? And the point was that you still have to have face-to-face discussions and contact and so on. So I think humanity will self-correct, or at least I hope they do. And we'll get into technology more as we talk about teaching a little later, because I want to get your thoughts on that. And a whole bunch of stuff to go over. We always have great talks whenever we have a chance to.
Great.
I want to touch on, so your daughter Kelly, I think, recently turned pro this year. Is that
she did?
So one question
yep.
I want to ask you is: was it easier being in the ropes as a competitor or outside the ropes as a mom?
I get asked that too, because both my daughters played collegiate golf. I have a niece who just signed her national letter of intent yesterday to play collegiate golf. And I've watched so much golf of not only youth, right, from being a coach and loving teaching juniors and watching, gosh, my husband and I were excited to say, I don't know, 350 boys and girls have gone on to play college. I don't even know the number anymore, but we love that. So we've watched them in tournament play. We've followed them outside the ropes. And perhaps that prepared me to watch my children be a part of it. I think for my children, it might have been harder when we first started watching than it was for me, because I think, they were thinking about what I was thinking the whole time when they were making mistakes or making errors. And I try to tell parents, your only role in watching a child is to tell your child how much you enjoyed watching them today, right? That's it. That's really all my husband and I figured we should say when we got in the car. Like, man, I really love being with you and watching you play. And typically a child then would turn back to you, and they really don't have a way to battle you. Because if I said something like, how the heck did you three-putt the last 3 holes, right? Which oftentimes parents are thinking, but nobody means to three-putt, right? They didn't have purpose miss to really aggravate you. And so instead, because the only answer you're going to get back to that is, because I just stunk today, or I didn't have the right putting stroke today, whatever, right? When you say, hey, I just love being with you today and watching you play, typically a child will take a breath and then say to you, gosh, I just really didn't putt very well today. And it gives you an opening, right, to kind of share either an experience of when we putted horribly, right, and we understood, and you can be compassionate and empathetic, or you can say, hey, I saw that, and maybe we can work on that tomorrow. So for us, I desperately want her to play well for herself, never for me or for my husband or for a family, but just for herself, because I know how hard she works. And so certainly for her, I get disappointed if she doesn't have the results she wanted, but I am there solely as a support system. And I truly believe there are times where I'm so happy I'm there when she played poorly versus when she played well, because that's when she really needed the support.
Right.
Of me cheering her on and, come on, let's go. You got this. The good days are easy. It's the hard days, obviously, as you well know, on a golf course, that are really, really hard. And that's when you need a parent behind. That's when you need them on the other side of the ropes to say, hey, let's go grab some ice cream. Right. Let's go do something else for a little. Let's go to a movie. Let's go do something other than this. Because golf doesn't define you, and certainly a score doesn't either.
When you were growing up, was golf your focus?
Skiing was my focus. 100% until, I loved golf. I grew up in Syracuse, New York, in a small town called DeWitt. And the weather there was more conducive to skiing than playing a lot of golf. We probably played golf maybe 4.5 months a year, maybe 5 if we were lucky. And I absolutely loved it when I did it. But I was a 3-4 sport athlete. When the golf season ended, I moved on to the next sport. And but skiing, I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to race in the Olympics. I thought about it I drew ski racing courses in my 2nd grade notebook that my parents kept. It was what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So Athletics, I can tell you, was always something that I cherished and loved. But skiing was really my goal.
Where was the changeover? When did that happen to golf?
I went to a boarding school in Waitsfield, Vermont for ski racing called Green Mountain Valley School. And my parents, at my begging, allowed me to go. My mom was an educator and wasn't thrilled with my choice. She wanted me to stay in public high school. And I, pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed until my parents, because I wanted to train with some of the best coaches there were. And so I moved there and went away to a ski racing academy. Absolutely loved it. And unfortunately got hurt. I fell on a downhill and went back to public high school and figured, maybe I'll still race and try to get healthy. And, it just didn't go that direction for me. And that's when I really started to focus on my golf. I ended up qualifying for the U.S. Open in high school, and I won my New York State Junior Girls Championship in high school. I played in the PGA Junior Championship, but that was a day and time where we didn't have the AJGA, obviously. We didn't have U.S. Kids Golf. We didn't have a lot of tournaments to play in, so to be recruited for collegiate golf, you played in your state junior championship, the PGA, the USGA Junior Girls. I qualified for that. And if you were, if you qualified for the US Open, of course, you got some looks from college coaches. And that's how I got recruited for golf.
It's interesting that in today's society, the specialization, so many parents push for that. And just listening to you talk about you were in skiing and you played all sports, and then you made the transition into golf, or more focused on golf, and then just excelled almost, I'm not going to say immediately. I don't think you picked up golfing within a year. You're winning these state tournaments, but the data over decades has shown that kids need to play a wide array of sports. They have to develop stability and kicking motions and all these different systems of their body. Yet so many parents want kids nowadays to specialize. Now you work with a lot of kids. How do you try to get that through their head where they think that their kid is going to be like Tiger Woods, who's the one exception? David Epstein wrote about this in his book Range. I had Dr. Greg Half on. He wrote about it in Periodization and Methodology of Training, all the data going back, 9-10 decades. So how do you get that through to some parents who say, no, my kid's going to play golf and they're going to play 40 weeks a year and they're, this and that and the other thing?
Well, I'm so happy you brought it up because we at the PGA of America obviously agree with you 100%. The data is overwhelming, and we have, with the United States Olympic Committee, joined PGA Tour, the LPGA, PGA of America, and what we've developed is the ADM model, which is the athletic development model for youth development in sport, and fundamental movement skills are a priority for that, where we have active start. It goes up 7 levels of training as a child grows through sport. And we're advocating 3-4 sports. We have a website called pga.coach to train our PGA professionals and LPGA professionals on fundamental movement skills and on ADM. And it's exciting. We launched that last year, and we have 1,000 PGA professionals who've already certified in it. And ultimately, when we head to PGA.com as a consumer outreach, those professionals that are on PGA.com to reach these consumers will have to be certified in ADM. As far as for me personally, I've always been a believer in that. As you said, I do feel like whole athletes always become better athletes. That doesn't mean your child's going to be elite because they go through this model. However, to be elite, the data is overwhelming, other than the exception that you mentioned and a few others. That what happens is, as a child's very young and specializes, this is a generalization, but let's say 10 or 11 and is winning every single tournament and only participating in one particular sport. What we see is oftentimes the child that's participating in multiple sports and developing their muscle and their body range and their balance and their skills, they are passing very quickly at the age of 14, 15, and 16, those that specialize very early. And so for children to be elite, that's important. But more importantly than any of that, the development of a child in sport at least when I was growing up, was always the journey of getting good. It was always the fun of not knowing how to do it yet, but learning how to do it. My coach was always, look, you just don't have it yet, right? You're going to get it, but just not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just enticing to me. And for me, I never looked at practice as a chore. I never, it was my, if I told my parents I wanted to go hit range balls and spend the day at the golf course, my parents brought me, or I had to ride my bike, or whatever the case may be. I realize in today's world, it's a little different than just dropping your child off for the day, and I understand that. But it was always me that was compelled to want to be there, to want to go to my coach, to want to learn something new. I found great fun in it. So it wasn't about the performance always. It was about how good could I get. And that's what force sports does for you. It also builds this incredible amount of confidence when you learn how to be a part of a team, when you learn that you may be really the best at one thing, but you're not quite as good as somebody else in the other thing. And what can you learn from them? So I encourage that in our junior coaching programs. We 10 to 15 minutes of every single program is fundamental movement skills based on age and developmental level that child is in. So we're running and skipping backwards and doing vertical leaps and, doing balance drills and speed drills and anything to develop coordination and movement to develop a whole child. And what we find very quickly is they have fun doing it. They're not in a place where they're standing for 35 minutes and hitting balls and then headed back home. We have stations, and it's something they don't want to leave. They ask, can we stay and hit 5 more, coach? Can we stay in it? No, we'll see you tomorrow, right? That's what we want from the game. We want to build young people who love it for a lifetime, whether they go the elite route or whether they just want to play golf for fun the rest of their lives. That's what our goals are. And, as we develop youth, it's really important that parents understand why we're doing what we're doing and how it's helping to develop the total athlete, the total child. Even if they don't feel like their child is athletically gifted, we can make them a better athlete through these skills.
Yeah, even if it isn't in golf, if the kid is, whatever, pick an age, 10 years old, if they get to 13 and they transition to, you got the opposite of you, someone goes into skiing, well, then they had that
Correct.
development when they were young.
Absolutely. And golf is just so much more than a game. It's so much more than the skills, right? I mean, we're also building character and perseverance and, so many things we talk about all the time, but it's also healthy, and they're outside with their friends and they're enjoying it together. And that's the goal.
Yes, and some of the data that I've read on that was that when you had mentioned the kids who specialize early, that they got so used to winning that when the other kids most often passed them in mid to late teen years, that they no longer had enjoyment. And a large portion of them, and you can pick the sport, that they weren't even playing the sport by the time they were in the early to mid-20s, which is sad.
So sad. And then, even beyond that, the injuries that you see in specialization are really overwhelming. And you're seeing it in golf too. Many of my daughter's friends who they grew up playing junior golf with, after Division I collegiate golf, aren't playing at all anymore. And that's something we have to stop, right? That's something we want people to play the game. Of course, for many people want to play it for the competition. I'm one of them. I absolutely love to compete, but I also enjoy it. And, there has to be a mix of that to make sure we have longevity in the game for anybody that wants to play the game.
What for you when you made that transition? What was the attraction to golf? Since you played a lot of sports, so what drew you to golf in particular?
I think the challenge of getting as good as I could get, right? Every day was different. I loved being outside. I was a child that hated being inside. So, the second the school bus dropped us off, my books were in the house and I was gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was about being outside. I loved spending time with my mom. My mom was an avid golfer, and I got her undivided attention on the golf course because my dad, he liked playing golf, but he could take it or leave it. And my sister was a big athlete, but she was a swimmer. So most often, if I really wanted to go play, it was with my mom. And I had this amazing experience being with her on a golf course. I had an unbelievable coach named Joe Tesori, who's a PGA professional in Syracuse, New York, that thankfully my parents found for me, who took me out on the golf course. I'm sure now that I'm in the business, I realize very clearly that he didn't have time, right? But he made the time. And he'd take me out on the back nine at 4 o'clock at night and show me shots. And we'd bring two other people with us and two other juniors with us. And we'd have competitions. And he'd putt with me for 15 minutes on the putting green. I'm sure it was probably before some big outing, right, that I wasn't even supposed to be there. But there I was. And he'd take me on that. So for me, golf's attraction was being with people that I cherished and really looked up to. My coach. I met great friends. I played on my high school boys golf team. They're still some of my dearest friends to this day through the game. And for me, it was the competition. It was an individual sport that I could always challenge myself to go a step further, and I love that about it.
Do you consider yourself that you played on the boys team and you were in the club side of the business and you're an instructor and now you're, of course, your position where you are now. Do you consider yourself a trailblazer?
I get asked that, and this is the way I'm going to answer it. So I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for people who opened the door for me to be here. Many of them women, and some of them men. And so I look to it more as, I get asked a lot, do you mind if we introduce you as the first female PGA president? Or would you rather just be introduced as the PGA president? And I always say, well, this is a really good question, but I'm honored to be the first female president because that means a lot to me, because if somebody's sitting in an audience somewhere, somebody listening, I think sometimes it's easier when you can see yourself in the role to be in the role. Mm-hmm. And if I can be a role model for somebody that comes after me to realize it's attainable, and your body of work has to support that, and you have to be confident in the understanding that you have the opportunity to do it because you're a PGA professional. I consider myself that. But to call me the first female, I think is important because I am the first female. Yeah, but the next female, I hope, is called the PGA president, because that's what we are too.
As I was, thinking about this, because with your schedule, obviously, it took us a little while to connect. But as I was over the weeks and just running things through my head to discuss with you, and I don't like that someone says you're the first female president. I look at you as the president and you happen to be a female, but I completely understand. And I think many people would, that saying that, the importance that it is to maybe some young girls. Right. Like you just said, that hear that and they see that, and now maybe that spurs them on to want to do something similar.
Yeah, in whatever career they want to pursue. And I always tell young women, look, I worked really hard to be a PGA professional. I'm proud of that. We go through 800 hours of education to become a PGA professional. I love wearing that logo. I'm proud to call myself a professional golfer. I work very hard at my golf game. I've worked very hard in my career. And, for me, many of the things that I've done led to this point of me wanting to give back more, wanting to be a part, wanting to have a voice in evolving the association and in making sure that we're serving our members in a way that's tangible. And I felt like I had something to give back to that. So that's why I ran. Mm-hmm. But I also ran because I thought I was capable and that I thought I could do the job. Not because I was male or female. It's pretty obvious, but at the end of the day, that was where I was in the moment. Now, to the outside world, there has never been one. It's 103 years. And so I'm proud of the fact that I'm the first female. But at the same time, I would hope, as we move forward, women, men, it doesn't matter. If you can contribute and, your body of work can support that, and you believe in the association and how you're going to help move it forward with your board and with everybody else that's in office around the country, then go for it and step out of your comfort zone and do it. That's what I would hope people would look at versus not look at gender.
Yeah, correct. Especially if it's very positive, the way that you have utilized it. Especially in today's world where everything, it just seems so volatile. I mean, you say one thing the wrong way, and it's like the X amount of groups want to bring it to stake for it. So it's a very thin line to walk sometimes. But I'm glad that you're the one that is the first female president. I mean, I know you, so hopefully people who listen to this get to know you better and are very, very happy that you're in that position as well, because we
Thank
all
you.
know that you're going to do some you've done some great things. You're going to continue to do some more. As we're on the topic, and kind of segueing a little bit into you being the leader of the industry, for lack of a better word, do you have any vision for the PGA, or what are some of the top things on your to-do list?
Yeah, we had a good year, but to your point, we have our challenges and we have a lot of work to do. Some of the things that I'm really proud of are what we've done in our PGA Reach Foundation space. A couple programs there, obviously PGA Junior League, that's had exceptional growth over the last 5 years. We're up to 60,000 boys and girls playing that. Close to 33% are girls. Certainly want to get that to 50, but a great increase from us from 11 when we started. We have close to 20% children of color that are playing in PGA Junior League. That certainly isn't where we want it to be. We certainly want that number to be as high as we can possibly get it. So we have work to do there, but still proud of the growth. PGA Works, which is a program where we are having paid fellowships around the country in our 41 sections for people who have never been exposed to the game before, but looking at it from a workforce standpoint. So we're trying to get more people of color into the workforce of the golf industry. We're an $84 billion industry, many of whom haven't had an opportunity to learn the game yet, but we want them to look to the game as a career. Certainly, we'd also like them to look to us as an association to become members of our association. So really proud of that. We've done some incredible things in the tournament space, like the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. I'm excited about that. We never had a females championship prior to its first year, which we had at Sahali, and now we head to Ronimick coming up this year. That's exciting. We had our first inaugural Women's PGA Cup this year. I'm really happy about that. And then on our member side, we're working incredibly hard on trying to get a deferred savings plan for our members, which would be incredible to help our members and their families and their well-being. And that's in the works. Certainly a long way to go on that and may not happen, but we're excited about the possibilities for that. National health care has been a real struggle to get a national health care plan for our members. Many of our members really, really could use that. And we know that, and we've been working on it, for almost 10 years, and still don't have an acceptable option for our PGA professionals. Certainly, we send them to the exchange and help them in any way we can be able to apply for that. But we have a lot of professionals that are independent contractors that don't have the opportunity for health care, and we need to come up with a solution for that. It's just legislatively that's been incredibly difficult the way we're structured and the way the healthcare plans are structured state by state. The PGA sections aren't structured the same way.
Yeah, you would think,
So
was it
that's made that
29,000 members in the PGA now, or thereabouts?
about 29,000. Yeah, that's correct. That includes associates, so members and associates, but we're hovering right around 29,000. And certainly we would like to be able to provide more opportunity for them. Those two things, the deferred savings and the national health care, is really what I receive the most requests about from our membership by email or by phone. And, it's something that we really are striving to accomplish, and it's been a challenge. And so that's something we'll do and keep looking at over the course of the next year. We've just secured our new HQ home at PGA Frisco, which we're incredibly excited about that. We're partners with Omni and many other companies, TRT. In the city of Frisco, we're building a championship 18-hole golf course with Gil Hans as our designer, and then Bo Welling is doing our other 18 holes. We'll have a short course. We have 13 high schools practicing at the facility. We'll have a retail shop, a world-class education center, and then obviously a hotel right there on site. So build out, we just broke ground about 4 weeks ago, and build out is projected at 2022. And that's going to be incredible for our members and everything we're trying to accomplish in the player development space as well. So we've got a lot going on. That's just a tidbit. I want to keep going, but at the end of the day, we're excited about what we're trying to accomplish for our members and for the game.
Would the savings title that you mentioned, would that be like a somewhat of a retirement account? Because I know when
Correct.
I interviewed Mike Harmon at Secession, he said that one thing that he advocated for was like a retirement account through the PGA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've just, there's a lot of IRS stipulations to be approved for that. And we've never been approved. We've certainly tried multiple times. We think we're a little closer with a structuring that they would approve, but I can't tell you that they will do that. And, and I would hate to get anybody's hopes up until we had the opportunity to say yes. But I can tell you this, it is a priority and we're working incredibly hard at it.
I'll make sure Mike gets a copy of this and he can hear that's being championed.
He'll be excited, but I don't want anybody to get excited until, we tell you it's done, because
Right.
It's not done. And we realize that. But we're going to try to do everything we can to at least get to a starting line for it. Whether we get to the finish line or not, that's yet to be determined.
As the industry's leader and being on the executive board, and when it comes time to make important decisions, how do you do that when on things that seem to be somewhat divided or a little bit contentious topics? How do you go about deciding which way you're going to lean, whether it's a vote or you're going to kind of get behind one of the two?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of leadership, right? You're not always going to make the popular decisions.
Right.
I think the other part of leadership is that you have to remember you're representing the brand. You're not representing yourself. And oftentimes you're not representing your section or your district when you're talking about the brand in its entirety. So when you're making these decisions, you don't make them singularly. You make them as a team. And, we have an incredible staff that Seth Waugh leads, our CEO. I have two other officers that I work hand in hand with on a daily basis, Jim Richardson and John Lindert. And then we have a very large board. We have a board of 22. That's including our officers, 3 independent directors, Chris Liddell, who's with the United States Olympic Committee, building their museum out in Colorado. And then we have Renee Powell as our at-large director. We have Andrea Smith, who works for the Bank of America globally. And then we have Lori Lee, who just came on, who works for AT&T and oversaw all of Latin America. So we have outside experts in the room. We have PGA professionals in the room, and then we have this incredible staff in the room, all of whom bring diverse perspectives to the table, all of whom are from a different geography in the country. And are representing different sections within our PGA of America. So making decisions takes a lot of vetting. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of pro cons. It's a lot of asking ourselves the very first question. We exist because of our membership, and if it's not going to help our membership in some way, then it shouldn't be on the table. And so what we've tried to do in that respect is every partnership deal that we've signed over the course of the last 5 years has a membership component to it. And that was important to us, or a section component to it. So little things like that are the way that we go about it. And then there's certainly times where we're going to make a decision that the room perhaps isn't unified, but we leave the room always unified.
Mm-hmm. It is when the logo represents so much to so many people, and you as a leader in the position that you hold are like a beacon, right? Like people look at you and you represent what the organization stands for. Is there anything did you ever think about or what does that logo mean to you, or what does it represent to you as the president of the entire organization?
Gosh, so much. So, I still remember when people asked me that question. I remember the day I got my plaque, and I wouldn't have missed that day at my section meeting in Connecticut. I couldn't wait to be able to wear the logo. So for me, first and foremost, it's a professional golfers association, and I'm very prideful of the way we play the game.
Right.
PGA professionals they have to pass a player ability test. I don't know that most people listening might not know that. And we're proud of the level of play. Now, certainly we have a differing level of play amongst all of our PGA professionals that work within the industry. Some have been former tour players, some played collegiately, some went to one of our PGM universities and perhaps didn't play collegiately, but still a very high level of play. So I'm really proud of that. And secondarily, we are an incredible network and community of people who love the game of golf, who are passionate about it, who share that vision and share that joy of the game, or they wouldn't wear our logo. And I find that what's so special about that is, to your point from earlier, we have 29,000 men and women around the country whom at any time can reach out to me or I can reach out to them. And I can't think of a time where somebody hasn't returned a call. Not because I'm president. This is years ago when I first received my badge or my logo. I've had mentors and sponsors and people in my life who are PGA professionals who have guided me any step of the way that I wanted help. And I think that's something that we overlook as PGA professionals, of how tight a community we really are and how service-minded we really are. We are leaders in the community. We're the gold standard in the game. We're the direct connection between those that play the game and the facilities where they play it. And, we hope to be the leaders in the golf community around the world, and that's what that logo represents.
I don't think a lot of people understand, unless you've ever been on a board, how much research actually goes into decisions that are made and the time that's put into that. And with that, most boards, or everyone that I've seen or been on or have talked to people on, has always, the data, the collection that you look at and review, and it is usually so in depth. But and then you make your decisions, right? But there's always going to be naysayers, regardless of what's being done, that don't have that information. They're not privy to it, and they're going to question everything you do. So I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you deal with that negativity? Do you ignore it, or do you try to communicate with them and educate as many people as you can on the decisions that have been made, and at least give some background as to why that was made?
Yeah, as best we can is definitely the latter. I've often found that as I grow in my leadership positions and learn along the way, which is, constant, the naysayers typically make you better. And if you can realize and really listen and really pay attention to what oftentimes might be behind the frustration, or behind the words, because oftentimes we'll get people who will reach out who send us a note just in disagreement, right? And that's a good thing, because that makes you realize that, okay, have we thought about everything? Have we gone through it? Has this been something we've actually discussed? Some other people write you in frustration, right? Because they just totally dislike the decision and don't really want to have a conversation about it. They just want to tell you that. If you can read through that, really what their frustration is really stemming from, and reach out as best we can. As we said, there's 29,000. I'm sure that we miss a few, and certainly we tried desperately to respond to all of them. Oftentimes, when you do educate, it doesn't mean you're going to change the person's mind, but the education process, at least, I hope, is compelling, and they can, as a person who's somebody who's really considering both sides of it, you hope that they can see your point of view and your perspective in a way that you really have put the effort and work in. Now, just like in our political climate, they may never agree. They may always, think that we made the wrong move or the wrong turn. But as a leader and as the one who typically writes these people back, it's important to me. It's important to me to hear what they have to say, but it's also important to me that they hear what I have to say.
Mm-hmm. I think you guys are probably a little different than the Washington political climate, and that you probably are working towards a goal as opposed to just trying to get in each other's way.
I think it's just human nature, right? It's people, and the dimensions of diversity are far greater than gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like where you grew up, where you live, what's important in your community. Currently we're really bullish on the game. Employment's up, comps up, golf numbers are up. However, we fully are aware that there's golf professionals in certain pockets of the country that need our help. And it's not, all rosy for them. And so, when you hear from them, those are the ones that need the compassion. That's the ones you need to reach out to and let them know you understand and you're working very hard toward that goal. So there's just differences of opinion. There always will be. And I think as a leader, understanding that and understanding that different perspectives make the room stronger, different perspectives make the brand better. When you can bring in those dimensions together and evolve as an association, you're going to be stronger.
Yes, you improve the weaknesses or what might be perceived as such and work on those. And then it's a communication, right? In anything. If you can talk it out, like, with the common goal that what do you want and here's what the organization wants, can we come to some type of agreement, then everyone's moving in the right direction.
You hope.
You hope. You hope you make the right decision based on the information you have. But yes, you're right. You hope.
That is the goal, correct. And sometimes you have to, as a leader, you have to be brave sometimes too. You got to take a little risk. And at the end of the day, I think if you can bob and weave and adapt, sometimes that really pays off.
Are there any leadership principles or philosophies that or leaders that you follow or learn from or read from or kind of follow what they did or just to educate yourself and then kind of put into play?
Yeah, I have so many people who have contributed to me in personal ways. Many of our independent directors certainly have become incredible mentors to me and coaches to me. Asuka Nakahara comes off as one of those, the Chris Lydells, the Andrea Smiths, who I already mentioned. Lori's just coming on the board, but they have just given their time so freely to me to help me become a better leader and a better coach. As far as coaches are concerned, there's so many, too many to name. John Wooden. There's just so many. I'm an avid reader. And so for me, that's important. I try to take bits and pieces. And then I also try to, whatever stories I've been told, kind of try to relate them to what we're trying to accomplish and how does that fit in to our goals, and how can I be a better coach and a better team leader. And as a coach in golf, I feel like I have good communication skills and good people skills. That's what I've always done on a lesson tee. That certainly helped me along the way. But I do everything really fast, right? So I've had to learn along the way, that you can't just pull the trigger really fast, and you got to think things through, and that's been wonderful for me in the process of being on the board since 2010, the national board. I was not on the board in 2014. That was the year I had come off and campaigned for election, but so I've really been in the room a long time. And boy, when I started in 2010, I was pretty bad board member. I raised my hand. I got in the weeds. I was in operations when I didn't need to be in operations. And, you learn as you go, and you learn from great people, and you learn from PGA professionals who came before me. And you realize very quickly, that you have to do this as a team, and you're going to work together to get to this common goal of bettering our members' lives and ensuring that our brand is at the highest level possible, and that as many people as possible are playing the game of golf. And how do we get more clubs in more people's hands? How do we make sure we look like the communities we serve? Those are our goals. And I've learned, if you stick to your mission and then you stick to your objectives and your priorities, and you have this kind of radar of, is this serving our member and is this serving our brand? It makes it much easier. So your leadership disciplines, if you want to call them that, and how you get that accomplished, obviously, just like in teaching, is going to be very different for each leader. And, if you're out teaching, we have multiple methodologies around the world on coaching and instruction. But we all know what impact is, and how we get there may be very different for you and for me. It's the same in the boardroom. And I find that for me, it's always been about being incredibly prepared, making sure that you're listening more than you're talking, and understanding that communication is so vitally important when you're making decisions. And then at the end of the day, also being kind. and understanding other people's point of view, and seeing their perspective, even when it's not yours, and even when you're convinced yours is the right one, right? You really have to understand that other people's point of views are very important, and that's really what I've learned. But I work at it all the time. I go away to executive business training classes. I do whatever I can. I read as much as I can. I listen to as many tapes as I can, because I think that's a process, and I think you can always get better.
Let me go back a little bit to when you, and I want to get in your playing career a little bit, but when you came off of playing and you were getting into the business side of the PGA, it was obviously a very male dominant industry. What made you want to get into that? Was it just that you really had a passion for the game, or is it you just that's just the way that was the opportunity you had? Because at that time, and there weren't really a lot of women involved in golf.
Okay, so truth be told, when I came off the tour, I had my daughter. I just had my daughter, and I had always worked since I was 14, mostly in the golf business. And it was the first time I really didn't have a job. And I was driving my husband insane. And because he would come home from his very long work week as a PGA professional, and I'd ask him who he saw and what he did. And Jim Flick at the time was his golf schools with Bob Toski were where my husband was working. And he said, Jim said you could come out and observe and watch teach. Maybe you'd really enjoy that. So I got into the teaching side, thankfully, with these amazing mentors that were there at the time. Martin Hall and Mark Wood, Kathy Wood, Dean Rymeth, Laird Small, Charlie Epps, Mike Malaska. I mean, I could go on and on about the people who actually trained me how to teach, Jim Flick and Bob Toski. And then I realized that I loved it. And I joined the LPGA Teaching and Club to Professional Division first, because at the time I wasn't working enough hours to join the PGA of America. They had a restriction at the time, which now is long gone. And so I joined that first. And then when my husband and I moved to Connecticut, I knew I had our second daughter at that point, and I knew I wanted to continue coaching and teaching. And so I looked up in the phone book, because we didn't have iPhones then. I looked up in the phone book, the courses in town, and I dropped off a very simplistic resume and ended up landing this amazing position at a place called Tumblebrook. But I was watching my husband in Connecticut play tournament golf in the Connecticut section once or twice a week. And I had no opportunity to compete. And that really was making me aggravated. So I would complain to my husband about that. And he'd say, well, then why don't you join the PGA? And I said, you know what? I'm going to join the PGA. So people always laugh. They always ask me, oh, did you join the PGA to be the president of the PGA of America? And I always say, no, I joined the PGA so I could beat my husband on the golf course and play more tournament golf. So my answer, truth be told, is I joined the PGA of America initially because of the opportunities it provided to its members to play tournament golf at a high level in their local communities. And then once I started that, I met these amazing people in these tournaments that were PGA professionals who ended up guiding me when I took my first head golf professional job, helped me. Just these incredible consummate professionals. And I wanted to be around them more. And they asked me to volunteer on a committee in the section. And at the time, I had done a little work for ESPN with some on-course commentating. And they asked would I be on the communications committee. And I said, I'd be more than happy to. So that's how I started in governance in the PGA of America, was locally within my section. And that turned into, well, Suzy, would you be on the sponsors and marketing committee? Yeah, I'd love to. Would you be on the education committee? Would you be on the tournament committee? And it just morphed into this incredible time for me where my time was being spent with people who had the same passion I did, who wanted to grow golf in Connecticut, who were compelled to give back to an association that had given them so much. And I became addicted to it. I love being around these people who were so engaged and so smart and so willing to freely help me with my career. That's how it morphed into me being on our local board in Connecticut. And then it just went on from there.
Was there, obviously in your, you've been around the game most of your life, and you've seen and experienced some of the challenges and restrictions against women in golf and involvement. And you've done a lot to curb that or change that. And I think, do you think that was a function of society back then, and how society has changed now? Or did you ever give any thought to what that might have been from, or did that spur you on to kind of do some of the things and programs that you've been involved in now?
I think it has to go way back to, my household growing up. So in my household growing up, we weren't given barriers, right? I had
Mm-hmm.
this mom who loved sports, but she also demanded preparation, right? This wasn't supposed to be easy. It wasn't supposed to be easy whether you're a girl or a boy. Now, I don't mean to sound like I didn't see things happen to me that probably shouldn't have. So, for example, I was turned away from a junior tournament because I was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know then at the time what a big deal probably that was to my mom and my dad. I just didn't understand it. I loved to play golf. I didn't understand why I couldn't play in the tournament. And, my parents had to try to explain it to me at the age of 11, right? I look back on that now and kind of giggle because when you ask, was it a sign of the times? I ended up playing on the PGA Tour as a female, but I was denied at 11. So yeah, we've come a long way, right? We've come
Crazy,
a
and
really long way. And I tell people all the time, that's not to say that we're ever going to forget history. History is really important. It teaches us things. We certainly hope we grow from things that happened in our past, and we have. Do we still have a ways to go for women and young girls to see themselves anywhere at any time on any golf course? We do. But have we made incredible progress? We have.
mm-hmm.
And, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that more women are playing the game. I'm proud of the fact that more young girls than ever are playing the game of golf. And that's due to so many great programs. It's also due to families having their children participate together, boys and girls. It's PGA Junior League. It's LPGA USGA Girls Golf. It's PGA professionals who continue to encourage women and young girls to be a part of the game. It's tee placement. It's how we're managing their experience. It's accepting the fact that a golf experience doesn't have to be 18 holes, whether you're male or female. So there's been so much progress, but we have more to do. And as I said earlier, we need to look like the communities we serve. We don't, and we have work in that respect to do that. But for where I've been in the game to where we are today, for me to say I'm president of the largest sports association in the world, that I've played in a PGA Tour event and an LPGA Tour event, that I had the opportunity because of Title IX to play Division I golf, and my girls both played Division I golf on scholarship, and now my niece. For me, that's a lot, and in a short time period for us to have a amateur women's championship at Augusta National is something that, wow, that's an incredibly proud moment. So golf has come a long way, but we need to continue to tell the story. We need to continue as PGA professionals to ensure that our properties are inclusive and welcoming, and we will, and we are.
If different things require attention differently, whether you have two daughters, and I'm sure you didn't treat them different, but one required you to approach one thing one way, maybe the other another way, and even in an organization such as a PGA. So how do you focus on one part, for example, getting more young girls involved and women involved in the game without negatively affecting the others? In other words, how do you maintain some sort of balance as you improve one, yet not let the other sections feel like they're being neglected at all?
Yeah, no, I think that's a smart question. And for me, if I take it, to my own world, like I'm the director of instruction at the Country Club at Mirasol. I'm PGA President. I'm mom. I'm wife, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of hats that I wear. And I think for me anyway, it's very strategic. You have to have priorities within all of those buckets, and those priorities need to have been thought of. They need to be intentional, and then they need to have a metric of success. So I don't mean to sound like I'm measuring success, my husband, but at the end of the day, if you're not prioritizing whatever you're trying to accomplish in the space you're trying to accomplish it, and each thing doesn't have a level of an objective and then a metric of success if you're meeting that objective, then probably you need to alter your plan. You need to change or adapt or make a different step in a different direction. And so that's the way we manage it at the PGA of America. Each department that we have has those priorities set out with very, very key objectives. We have the stakeholders that are involved, and then we have metrics to make sure we're measuring if we're achieving success in that particular area. Certainly, we have timelines on everything that we try to accomplish because we want to get stuff done. We don't want just stuff that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We want things that get accomplished. We also have visions. 5-10 years down the road. I think that's one of the hardest parts about being on our board is oftentimes we're making decisions for our members for 5-10 years from now in hopes that we've made great decisions for that member 5 to 10 years from now. So it's very important for me to make sure that's as organized in my head as it can be, as well as on paper. I do mind maps all the time so I can envision what next steps are, but nobody does this by themselves, and or else those things will get some things will get lost, and that's why we have incredible teams that are accomplishing that with us.
Is the success measured more by did you achieve the goal, or is it measured more by where it started compared to what it reached? Let's say within a certain time frame of a year or 2 years or any amount of time.
I think both. For us, if our objective is to say something as broad based as we want more young girls playing golf,
mm-hmm.
That's way too broad. That'd be like somebody walking up to you as a beginner and saying, I'd like to shoot 72. Right? Okay, well, wouldn't we all? But let's try to figure out what we can do first to get you on your way there. And at the end of the day, so I think both are important. Certainly, we want more people playing the game tomorrow than did yesterday, right? How do we measure that? Well, in a global expanse, that would be very difficult to actually measure. So sometimes your results come in later than you'd like to have them, to bob and weave of did we accomplish that? And if we didn't accomplish that, what are our intentions that we need to change and what do we need to adapt and mold to? And at the same time, your objectives need to be very clear. Why I always ask my staff and my team, why? What is your why? It has to be first. And, how are we going to get that why accomplished? And then what are we going to do today, short term, long term, to make sure that happens? And then how are we going to measure it? And so that for me is how it works best. And that's how we've, made progress, whether it be in my job here locally or whether it's been with the PGA.
Golf is so steeped in tradition, but sometimes tradition can be a heavy anchor. Because if you ask people, why are you doing it this way? And they say, well, that's the way it's always been done. And that holding on sometimes of tradition can get in the way. Do you see that at all in now or since you've been on the executive board or working with today's world or technology and things like that?
I love the traditions of golf.
Mm-hmm.
I am one of those people who I love playing 18 holes. I would play 36 holes every day if I could. I love the fact that people wear their hat forward. I love the fact that people have their shirts tucked in. I am one of those, I like the traditions of the game. I like the fact that people take their hat off to shake hands at the end. I like the integrity that is offered through the game and the character that it builds. And, golf makes families make great kids, but golf helps, right? Because of the rules and that we abide by these rules, and you don't have a referee, you have to referee yourself. I mean, we could go on and on about the traditions that I love. I love walking, right, about the game. However, I'm very aware, keenly aware, that golf experiences don't have to be the traditional one for enjoyment and for growth. And I think that's hopefully will give you a better answer to your question, because we don't have to give up one to get the other. They're not mutually exclusive. The game itself inherently is bringing people in because of the enjoyment it provides. So places like Top Golf, places like Golf Tech, mini golf, Holy Moly, I think is what it's called. Steph Curry, who's one of our PGA Reach Junior League ambassadors, who has that on TV. Putting on a putting green for 15 minutes with your granddaughter or grandson. All those are golf experiences. They may not be the traditional form that I grew up loving and playing. It doesn't mean I don't love going to Topgolf, right? And it doesn't mean somebody that loves going to Topgolf isn't going to enjoy going to play on a golf course and playing 9 holes of golf. So I think we have to come to the realization that golf experiences are just that. And if you're having a golf experience, you are now a golfer. And if we can realize they don't have to be exclusive, we will invite so many more into the game than we could ever imagine.
It would, as I was reading up on you a little bit, would one of those things be the scorecard initiative that you've been working on?
Yeah, it's so funny. I haven't been working on it. I just mentioned it on a different podcast because I think it's just always been mind-boggling to me that as we invite more people into the game, and certainly we've come a long way with the opportunities for playing different tees. And calling the forward tees, versus the women's tees as we did previously, because anybody should be able to choose that tee to enjoy the game more depending on their club head speed. So my question was, why in the world do we separate the tee boxes on a scorecard? Why aren't all the tee boxes at the top? And why aren't all the boxes at the bottom? When instead we typically put where women are supposed to play from at the bottom of the card, and we put where men, quote unquote, are supposed to play from at the top. So if you're a male who's learning the game, it may be uncomfortable for you because everybody else is up there, but now you're down here. And if you're a woman who wants to play the whites or the blues or the greens, why would you have to be up at the top? So why wouldn't we just put all the tee boxes together at the top? To me, that invites anybody to play from wherever they choose to play from in a way that makes the most sense for them, whether they're male or female.
Right. Sometimes the best ideas are the simplest.
If you think about it, why are they down there?
I don't even know if that's a tradition or what. The only thing I can come up with is convenience, or trying to fit it all on one card, or that's why I'm not in position. I'm glad I'm not in position to have to make that decision.
I just think if you're starting the game tomorrow, and all the tees are listed in the same spot, it'd be a lot easier just to go, well, I'm going to play from there, right?
Yeah, you start where you can feel like you're making some progress.
No, exactly.
Why beat yourself up and say I'm not going to do this? It's just too hard. Okay, why not just eliminate that and say you just start where you feel like you can handle, and here's where now you can see your progression.
Exactly. And if you want to stay there forever, like skiing, the fascinating thing to me about skiing is if you go to a ski hill and you start on the green slope, skiing never tells you have to move up to the double black, right? They say, come join us on the green slope for the rest of your life, and we can't wait to have you, right? But for some reason in the game that we have, people immediately assume, well, I'm supposed to get better at it to stay, right? Well, wait a minute. No, there's so many more inherent amazing things about the game than score. Now, you and I, we are totally into the score, right?
Right.
But, you may be, it may be for business. It may be for health and wellness. It may be for fun. It may be to be out with your children. It may be to spend some time with your parent, you, and your children. I mean, there's just so many more amazing things about the game, including the nature of it all, beyond performance, that we need to invite people and realize that, it's okay. If you want to get better, PGA professionals are here to help you get better. And we know as people get better, they play more golf. And that certainly is what we want to have happen. But if you want to come out and enjoy, PGA professionals are going to help you do that too.
What are some of the outside of that is, well, that kind of segues in the next section is what are some of the challenges of growing the game? Because it seems like almost like what golf represents, society is kind of going against the grain a little bit. And what I mean by that is, golf, it's 4 hours, you take your time, you enjoy it. the progression of improvement is over time. It's measured in often years, not minutes or hours. Like society, you can get 2-day delivery on anything that you want. You can binge watch an entire season of a television show. How do you continue with your growth of the game when it seems like society, to some extent, is going the opposite direction?
Yeah, I think we have to really address that, and we have to address it. We are addressing it, I hope, in a great way, because I think you have to look at the time consortium as a little bit, or as a little different than just the hours, because absolutely we fully understand that some people cannot take 4 hours to play 18 holes of golf in the worlds that we live in today. So it's accepting, like we talked about earlier, about, what a golf experience is, and that we acknowledge that is a golf experience. But at the same time, we have to give consumers the ability to connect with PGA professionals 24/7, just like you mentioned with Amazon. So we're excited. In June 2020, we're going to relaunch PGA.com, which is going to be a direct interface from PGA professional to consumer, where we are looking to have open table for golf. So in other words, where we are allowing PGA professionals, obviously, to have their content on PGA.com, where they can interface directly with the consumer, whether it be in videos, instruction, whatever it might be, through that portal, literally 24/7. So if you wanted to take a lesson from somebody at 11 o'clock at night that's a PGA professional, or watch their videos or consume their content that they've posted on there, you have the opportunity to do that. If you want to be able to schedule a travel trip or a tea time or whatever it might be that you want to do when you're not physically with the PGA professional or at your facility, we want you to have the opportunity to be able to do that right online and directly interact in a way that's tangible for the consumer. So we're really looking to bring the experience to the consumer in the time that they have. We just did a study where, a lot of people, when we asked them about the time, they said, well, it's not really the time. I just don't have time to search for an instructor. So we know we have to make that simpler for the consumer to be able to find us and to be able to engage with us. It's more about scheduling, and I don't know that I can schedule a lesson in my day with my family considerations, my work, and then once I get home from work with activities. So we want to make sure they can schedule a lesson outside of those times when it's convenient for them. And that's what we're looking to do with PGA.com. So we're not ignoring the fact that some people can't play 18. We obviously want people to realize 9 holes is okay, 3 holes, 6 holes, all the options that have been talked about multiple times in the past. But we also want to give them the opportunity to consume golf in the manner they want to consume it in the time they have to consume it.
That is very smart. That's why you're running the show. Because you're very smart. You come up with these ideas.
Well, no, I had lots of help on that. Yeah, no, lots of help. But we're in a state of disruption. Every business is, right? And
things change so fast in today's world.
So fast, and you need to be prepared for that disruption. And so, we're doing everything possible. It doesn't mean that we'll have it all perfect in June of 2020. It's obviously going to evolve and get better as we go, but we want to be the disruptors versus the ones being disrupted.
I wanted to ask you on one topic because I started caddying when I think was 11 years old, back in the early to mid 80s, and even the topic back then was, and we touched on it briefly, was compensation. Like assistants don't make that much as a whole around the country or in the industry. So if I remember correctly, I think you have a degree in economics. So is that a condition of the market, or is there something that the PGA can do about that?
Yeah, so we think both. So, that's always been a struggle. Right now, we have undersupply, but we're going to go to the economics side. We have associates, which has been good for their compensation, right? Not good for facilities that can't find those that they need, but certainly good for those that are associates in those seats because compensation is up but we really are down in our numbers of associates, which we're working on very hard. So when you ask if the PGA can do something about that, we have a full-born recruiting plan at Division 1, 2, 3, and NAIA schools to showcase and share with them the opportunities the $84 billion industry has for them. Many of those that are in those situations feel that their options are coaching, which I happen to love, by the way, or merchandising, which other people happen to love, but they think those are their only two options. So we're showcasing the fact that you can be, executive managers, you could own golf course properties, you could work for a manufacturer and be a PGA professional. I could go on and on about communications,
Right.
golf channel, whatever it might be, you could still be a PGA professional and be in those positions. So that's very important to us. And we're working hard to increase the number of associates we have available for the facilities around the country that have a PGA professional. We're pleased that compensation is up, of course. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be people listening that say, well, that's not happening where I live, right? So as far as the PGA, what we can do about it is we have 19 career consultants around the country who sole job really is to not only help our members, but also deliver messaging to employers in those communities about the benefits of hiring a PGA professional, our comp studies for the value of those jobs within those communities and what those values are to help when a job becomes available. But we also want them to be proactive and not just reactive. So we're constantly trying to engage our professionals in the highest level of education that they can achieve beyond their membership, which, as I mentioned earlier, was 800 hours. You can go far beyond that with our libraries and course curriculum. We now offer certificates from UNLV's Hospitality School for our PGA professionals that they go through a training program. We have a biometrics institute at Penn State for our PGA professionals who want to really up their skills in biomechanics. So we're ultimately creating opportunities for our PGA professionals to ensure that they have the highest level skills so that they're the most important person on the property and that employers know that.
Yeah, if you can make yourself more valuable to somebody, I think that's probably the best way that you can improve your financial situation. You can provide value.
Correct. And we don't own the jobs. PGA of America doesn't own the jobs. As I mentioned, we have a dues-based membership, which is an association. We obviously run some of the largest championships in the world, which helps us provide education resources, employment resources, player development, tournament resources to our membership and to our sections. But we don't own the job. And, we try very hard to help our members, if they choose to get as many skills possible to ensure that they are the competency they want to be for the position they want to hold.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're doing what an organization can do is provide the opportunity. You can't make the horse drink the water, right?
Well, we hope
you can lead
so,
them to it.
we hope so, but and we have master professionals and certified professionals, and now we'll have specialized professionals, and employers need to know what those mean. It can't just be internal. So we have a really neat campaign we started last year, which will continue through this year, called PGA Journeys, where we were promoting PGA professional stories through our PSAs, through our championships, on our digital resources, through television, about what a PGA professional is, who they are, and what kind of career path they've chosen. So those will run all year long. And really, those are not only just to educate consumers about who we are and what we do, but also employers.
Let's move into something a little more fun. Your playing and your coaching career. And what really stands out that everybody remembers you for probably the most was your playing in the Greater Hartford Open. Was it 2003, I think? What was that like for you? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it fun? Was it overwhelming? What?
Yes, and yes. I qualified for that event in 2002, and then you waited until 2003 to play in it. I didn't participate in an event to qualify for that event. I won our section championship in Connecticut, which came with the exemption. I never imagined they would allow me to play because I was a female. And then when they asked me if I was going to take the exemption right after I had won, I said something like, "Can I think about it?" Right. So for me, it took me 3 months to decide whether I was going to play or not play in that event. I was a head golf professional at the time at a public facility in Avon, Connecticut. My husband was working full-time as a general manager at TPC River Highlands. We had 2 very young daughters. It was overwhelming to even think about competing against the best male golfers in the world, as a mom and a head golf professional at a local golf course. And so it took me a while to really decide, the whys. Why would I do this? Why would I put myself out there like that? And it was my young daughter who actually made up my mind for me. And we were reading a story one night about taking opportunities and being brave and not worrying, and being prepared. And I think she was 9 at the time. And she looked right at me and said, "Then why aren't you playing?" And I walked downstairs and I told my husband that night, I said, "We're in." And from that moment on, it was an incredible team effort. I mean, my employer gave me the time to practice, and I had a trainer who trained me, 3 hours every morning before I went to work. And I had friends who were taking up the slack for me with my children's appointments and school and doctor's appointments. I mean, my team at work was handling tasks that were really my job, so that they gave me the opportunity to do the best I possibly could. And I owe them so much for that. And ultimately, when it came around to the time of playing, yes, I was incredibly nervous. I wasn't overwhelmed because I was prepared as best I could be. I was really adamant about that. I told my husband there was going to be no excuses. I didn't want to say, well, if I only had. So I did everything in my power to get as ready as I possibly could for the situation I was in. And, it was an amazing experience. It's one I'm so happy that I did. I started out with a double bogey on the first hole with a 3-putt from 4 feet, and went on to shoot 75, which certainly is not the lowest career round of my life, but it was the best career round of my life. I'd never played better golf. And I can't say enough great things about the experience. It was incredibly nerve-wracking. The world was watching. I was representing the PGA of America, who had given me the opportunity. I wasn't representing the LPGA Tour. I wasn't a member of that tour. I was representing my peers who had supported me and helped me so much in the state of Connecticut. And that alone was nerve-wracking. I wanted to do well. I was a competitor. I wanted to play well. And I also wanted to show my daughters that, you can be brave and hold your head high no matter the outcome. And my girls talk about it now still. And so I'm really proud that I did it.
How were you received by the players? Was it all positive? Was there any negativity or anything like that? I couldn't imagine.
Sure.
I couldn't imagine it, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, I had amazing support. Peter Jacobson played a practice round with me and ended up winning the tournament. I mean, that was just surreal. And, David Duval introduced himself to me on the putting green like I didn't know who he was, right? But how nice was that? Because it made me relax. It made me smile. Paul Isinger met me at the front door to wish me luck. I mean, I could go on and on. I hate saying people's names because there were so many people that wished me well. I mean, listen, were there people who were against it? Like in anything, of course there were, and there were, but the majority of the letters I received and outreach I received, I think I did over 2,800 interviews around the world. It was the first time in a very long time when Annika played and I played and Michelle we played that women's golf was on the covers of magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And what a proud moment for women's golf. I'm honored to have been a part of that year.
Yeah, it's not like you came out of nowhere. I mean, you had a very, very accomplished playing career. You played LPGA for a couple of years. You played in the PGA Professionals Championship a couple times up to that point, and even since. I mean, I think you played in the Senior Women's Open. You've won numerous tournaments in Connecticut and regionally. So, for anyone that thinks that this just came out of nowhere, it's no. I mean, you're a very accomplished golfer to begin with.
Thank you.
I mean, you played Division I golf. You're obviously a very good athlete in general, but
I had one of my juniors ask me a couple of weeks ago, who was brand new to our program, and she goes, "Do you play golf?" I said, "I do play golf. I actually love to play golf. I can't wait to teach you how." It was awesome.
So you're tell me a little bit about your time in the LPGA Tour. Um, did you have was it a goal to get to the LPGA as you were playing at UNC, or did you say, hey, let me take a shot and see what happens, or how did you that kind of go about?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a goal. I played at UNC, loved my college career, had a blast playing collegiate golf. I was a decent collegiate golfer. I certainly didn't win any accolades or championships. But I mean, I was a good third player. Every once in a while, I'd sneak two or squeeze out a one for the team. I don't mean first place for the tournament. But typically, I was third. I was behind Katie Peterson, who was a first team All-American, amazing player, and then Donna Andrews, who ultimately won the Dinah Shore on tour as well. So they were in front of me, and both of them had aspirations of playing tour throughout college. I was going to go to law school. I took my LSAT. I was headed to law school. I moved back home after college and was working at a golf course in right outside of Wilmington, Delaware, outside in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And the LPGA championship was at DuPont Country Club at the time, and they allowed amateurs to try to qualify for the event. And I had come off a pretty good spring for me in college and decided to enter the qualifier. And I qualified as an amateur. They took two. I qualified, and I played well in the tournament. And I had two gentlemen approach me at that particular event after watching me play to ask me if they could sponsor me to go to tour school. And I really had never even thought about it. And went home and thought about it. And I grabbed my parents and sat them down, and I said, hey, what do you think about me going to tour school instead of law school? And, my mom thankfully said, you can always be a lawyer. If you feel like you want to give this a shot, we think you should do it. And, my dad supported it, and that's what I did. And the good news was, they kind of put the pressure on me and said, listen, you've always kind of just relied on your athletic talent. This is going to take a whole lot more than that. And they were right. I had always kind of just relied on my talent. I don't know how else to say it. I worked at golf. I'm not sure I ever worked really hard at golf until I was much older. And so I went to tour school at Palm Springs and then Venice, Florida. Then we went to Sweetwater, Texas. And I got a conditional LPGA card, which, got to be honest, my mom and I looked at each other like, wow, what do we do now? And, I don't mean to sound flippant about it because there were so many great players there, but I had this amazing Debbie Massey, who played on tour at the time, who was a big skier, lent me her caddy, her tour caddy. His name was Tabby. And he got me around that golf course. He strategically got me around that golf course in a score that I needed to get. And off we went to play the LPGA Tour. I had a horrendous first year. I only made 3 cuts, made about $2,400 total, and promptly got fired, right? I mean, lost my card. I always tell young people that's what, when people say they lost their card, they mean they got fired, right?
They lost their job.
So, right, they lost their job. So, and then I realized very quickly what I'd had and that I hadn't even come close to working hard enough to keep it. So I ended up starting to work. My husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, he was Katie Peterson's coach, and I went to him and really tried to get my game in shape. I took a waitressing job at night to pay the bills so that I could play golf during the day and try to go back to tour school. I did not get my card the next time back, but I did get my husband. We ended up getting married, which is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. And we'll be married 28 years, I think, next week.
It's amazing how you can never connect the dots going forward, isn't it? You can only connect them going backwards.
You can only connect them going back, and I can't even imagine doing it any other way. I've had an amazing life with him. And so at the end of the day, I did get my card back in 1993. Or 1992, and then played in 1993. And it was a much, much better year. Midway through that year, I got pregnant with our first daughter, and just, I didn't want to travel with her on tour. That was my personal decision. And so then I decided to just, start doing something else. And then when I got to be 35, 36, I started playing the best golf of my career, 34, 35, 36. So after my children were quite a bit older, I won the LPGA National Teaching Championship in 2002. I played in the Club Professional Championship in 2002, played well in that. And then I went on to win the Connecticut Section Championship in 2002. And, those were really like that little span for me from about 2002 to about 2007 was really the best golf I've ever played.
Was there anything that that you look back on now that you're a very accomplished teacher? I mean, you're Golf Digest Top 50, LPGA Top 50. I think you've been Connecticut Teacher of the Year a number of times, Master Professional. I mean, the list goes on and on. But was it your instruction that helped you look at your game from a different perspective that helped you go on? Or like you said, your girls were grown, so your responsibility wasn't as strong, maybe? As your girls are old, you don't have to focus on them as much. That they're more they can take care of themselves a little more. Or was it something
shockingly,
else?
They were little. Shockingly, my best golf was played when my daughters were like 6 and 9. And I'd never been, I say this now and I laugh about it. Like I at that point, I had never been busier. So I'm definitely busier now. But I mean, I literally had a full-time 100-hour-a-week job with these 2 young children. My husband was working just as hard, and I was playing the best golf of my career. And what I can break it down to now is that when I had an hour and a half to practice, which was, rare to have an hour and a half in a row. So let's say I would do it in 30-minute segments or even 20-minute segments. That time had to be really productive. And I realized very quickly where my weaknesses were and what I needed to hone in on. And I started to keep data and stats for that I had never done before in a time where people really weren't doing that. And I started to track things, short game, yardages, and I figured out quickly where my gaps were. And I plugged my gaps in of my game because I didn't have enough time to work on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I could keep my strengths strong by doing a little in those areas. But my gaps and the things that were non-negotiables, I couldn't afford to leave as such because I didn't have the amount of time I used to kind of play at those. And what happened was I made some of those weaknesses strengths. My strengths didn't go away, but I had the ability to really focus better as well, where I had to tune things out and I had to learn that I could say no. This is my 20 minutes. So for me, it was more about what I was doing within those sessions. And then when I went on course to play, it was about what I was tracking strategically and where I needed to miss because I was better at it, or where I could go for it because I knew I had the shot. So at a par 5, for example, I became a much better short bunker player. I could blow it into a bunker and know I could make birdie.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was about strokes gained before strokes gained was a thing.
Yeah, you were Mark Brody before Mark Brody.
But I really wasn't. I can't even go there because I just listened to Mark at the Top 100 Summit. And he's just, oh my gosh, his material always blows me away. I wish I'd had all that then. I wish Mark had called me in 2002. But for my own little world of what I designed for me, it worked.
You just mentioned the Top 100 Coaches Summit up in Pinehurst, and were you there as a coach or the PGA president?
I am a Top 100, but I was there presenting.
Oh, nice. I was told that you're doing some really, really good things for coaches. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, or are you allowed to?
Yeah, so we did. No, absolutely. We did talk about it during this, actually. So PGA.Coach is one of those that we're offering that resource on ADM. And on, all the stages of athletic development and movement,
mm-hmm.
which we're really excited about. As I said, that's a partnership between the USOC, the PGA Tour, and the LPGA. We also, and that's offered to PGA professionals and LPGA professionals as well. And then we also, with our new PGA.com launch, we will have coaches portals there We'll have third-party engagement on there that we can design for coaches for the services that they currently use, like scheduling and revenue tracking, and then interfacing with consumers. We are going to offer that to PGA professionals through PGA.com that have done PGA.coach. So it's really cool stuff. We went through some of our studies that we've done with a company called Huge, which is our agency that did consumer research studies for us on coaching and the things that consumers are really looking for based on their time, which we've talked about today, but also based on what their coaching preferences are and what they're looking for from a coach. So we gave them quite a few insights at the Top 100 Summit, and certainly are going to share those all at the golf show with our PGA professionals.
You had mentioned working with the Flick and Toski schools kind of when you got started into coaching and teaching. Did you work for them for long, or did you go somewhere else and learn under some other very well respected and known teachers?
No, I worked for them for a long time. I want to say it was 6 years where we traveled to different sites, Desert Mountain being one of them, obviously Ibis Golf and Country Club in West Palm Beach being one. They weren't weekly, so it wasn't like I was with them weekly.
Mm-hmm.
But when they had their schools and, they needed staff, Kathy Wood and I were the only two women at the time that worked for them. And oftentimes these corporate golf schools then didn't have a lot of women participants. You make it one or two. And what's really wonderful now is when I see a corporate group or when I have my own corporate groups, half the people there are women. So that's a pretty cool evolution too. But we really had an amazing time. I learned so much by doing that, because where I learned the most, to be honest with you, was at lunch and at dinners, where people would banter about the golf swing and really go at each other, and their opinions of what they thought was accurate information and what wasn't, and why, and the physics of the swing. And Mike Malaska was at the forefront of really fitness and golf
Mm-hmm.
instruction. He was way ahead of his time, and we would all laugh at him because he was convinced that biomechanics, had Paul Check. He would bring up Paul Check's Biomechanics of the Golf Swings book, right? And we'd all be like, give me a break. You know what? Hitting golf balls is hitting golf ball. I think about that now. He was so spot on, right? With what I've studied since then and learned since then. And Jim and Bob would go round and round on conversations about tour professionals that they taught and why they taught them that way. And Martin Hall brought a whole new dynamic to short game instruction, and I learned so much from Martin when it came to coaching people and groups of people and how to get people to perform and do what you were asking them to do in a way that made it their idea. And that they could physically do it. Jim Flick taught me that it's about the person standing in front of you first and foremost, always. And he was one of the best communicators ever. And that person 100% only thought they were the only person at the school when they were with Jim. And, what an honor for me and a privilege for me to have witnessed that and watched that and learned from that.
You had mentioned Czech, and Dan Hellman was on the podcast some time ago, and Dan was one of Paul's, I think, 7 worldwide lead instructors.
Oh, wow.
But to hear someone mention Czech back then in the 90s, when nowadays, the internet and everything else, but back then when the internet wasn't what it is today, for someone to know who Paul Czech was back then is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. He gave us all his materials, right? And,
mm-hmm.
it just, I think about the things that I just had an opportunity, and it was just luck. It was just good fortune. My husband was there, and, I can't imagine doing anything other than what I've done in coaching. I love it. I love being with people. I love getting joy out of it. I love seeing whether it's a beginner or a tour player perform to what they want to do. It makes my day, I hope, as much as it makes theirs. And, what a gift I was given, because I can't imagine doing something else.
I want to ask you one thing, and I asked Andrew Rice this, because Andrew worked for David Ledbetter back in about that time, that era. And it seems like the new era almost says, well, the last era they did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And I'm sure that era said that the era prior to them, instructors did all these things wrong, and here's this new cutting edge research and so on. But what you said about Jim was very similar to what Andrew said about David, in that he had a way with people that that just made them play better, or that made them feel like that they're the only person and the most important person in the world. And I guess I'm leading to the question is, do you think in today's, as we talked about tech and it affects the industry and other things, that technology has somewhat taken away from that art, I would say, of personal connection and dealing with people, as it
Yeah,
relates
I
to
hope
coaching?
not. No, I mean, I hope not, because I use lots of technology,
Mm-hmm.
and those that coach around me use lots of technology, and I think that's up to the professional and their delivery. I think, though, first and foremost, as I mentor other people who want to be involved in coaching and teaching, or when I go to summits or deliver presentations, my whole premise is, yes, of course the mechanics matter, and of course technical skills matter, and technology certainly helps you address those quicker,
Mm-hmm.
and with substantiated data, right? Scientific data. It's not subjective. There it is, right? And if you understand how to read that and manipulate that into information that's actually tangible for the customer in front of you, fantastic, if that helps you do that. But it comes down to the relationship. And what people really love, in my opinion, about taking golf lessons is they feel like they have a partner in it with them. And they don't want to do it alone. And at the end of the day, when they know they have somebody to share the good times with, to share kind of the frustrations with, that can help them proceed, that can develop a plan for them, a manageable plan that makes sense for the time constraints they may have to accomplish it, that can help them set goals that are reasonable and attainable, but also some long-term goals that maybe are some visionary goals. That's what I'm in it for. And that's what I feel my clients are in it for. They want to get better. Don't get me wrong. We all know getting better, you play more golf and you have more fun playing golf as you perform better. So certainly I'm not saying that's not important. But for me, it's the relationship first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
100%. And I want them to be my partner in that. I want them to understand that this isn't a transactional 30 minutes. It's not a, hey, thanks for coming and good luck, right? It's, let's talk about this. Let's talk about where you'd like to get to. Let's talk about how we can make that happen together. Let's talk about the time we have to spend together. I mean, how can we make that the most beneficial for you this week? And when people get that and really truly authentically know you're there for them, um, you will build a teaching business that is really fulfilling, but also one that's substantial.
Yeah, because technology does play a role, and probably a very large role. But I think, or what I see some young teachers coming up, and I offer my opinion where they listen. I say, here's my 2 cents. You can give me a refund if you want to. Is you have to be able to, number one, communicate, interpret that data and communicate it so that that person can find it useful. But you got to remember that this is a people business, and they can go to anybody with the technology you have. So what are you doing to make their time, because they're giving you a half hour, they're giving you an hour, and they're giving you a fair amount of money to do so? How enjoyable are you making that for them and making them better at the same time?
It's so true, because if you think about, half an hour is a long time now to give
Mm-hmm.
somebody. An hour is an incredibly long time to give somebody. So I always tell my students that I'm always honored that they trust me for that hour, because I know they could be doing multiple other activities in that same hour. And I take it very seriously, and I'm appreciative that they've chosen me, and the expectations of that comes responsibility. And to your point, they can go to anybody that has TrackMan, right? They can go to anybody that has, I mean, we can name 15 things,
Right.
right? But it is the delivery, as you mentioned. It's making sure the person standing in front of you understands it in a way that they can really think about the data and then perform to a capability at some point of what you're trying to get them to accomplish and how they're trying to accomplish it. But it really is how you make them feel about it, and that you're not going away. You're not leaving. You're here, and we may not have it yet, but I can't wait till I get to see you again and we can continue to work on it.
Because I used to have a women's only mimosa beginner clinic. It was every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And the ladies that used to come to it, the same ones would come every week. I'd have anywhere from 10 to 12, depending on who was busy and who wasn't. And so we'd have our mimosas to start the clinic, and so I'd ask them, okay, who worked on the week prior, who worked on their chipping, and they look at each other. No one raised their hand. I said, well, you're supposed to practice when you go. So, but they go in the pro shop and they buy new outfits and new shoes and new everything. And finally, after about a month of this, they said, well, we're really kind of here for the social aspect. And if we get better, that's okay too.
But how great is that? I mean, they told you why they were there. I think that's the other key that I try to tell professionals who really want to be on the coaching side of the business is don't forget to ask. Don't forget to say, what is it that can help you with today? What really would you like to accomplish? And they may say, I just don't want to embarrass myself,
mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of that social consumer group that wants to enjoy, doesn't want to embarrass themselves, wants to be able to go play and understand kind of the norms and the mores and the swing itself. And, I'm not saying they don't want to hit it, but it's more important for them that they enjoy the time out there than it is their score. They're not in that win consumer group, right? The group that I live in, right? The group that you live in, right? And that's where we have our biggest opportunity as coaches. The win group, they spend the most money with us right now, right? They're very competitive. They want to lower their scores. They want to get better. They play the most rounds of golf. The social group and the health and wellness group, based on our huge agency studies, those are our biggest groups that we have yet to tap into in a way that's tangible for that consumer. And when we do, the golf business is going to be thrilled that we did.
Oh, I agree 100%. It's sitting there like an oil well, that hasn't really been, like you said, tapped into yet. And when that happens, it's the game will continue to grow, I think, exceptionally well.
We have to be okay as coaches with, okay, what does social mean? I think you have to dive into that. So when somebody says, look, we're just here for the social, right? So when that's the case, all right, so you already made it fun, right? They obviously wouldn't have come back if it hadn't been fun. But how can we make the improvement fun, right? How do we build it so the management of their game actually gets better while they're having fun? And then once they start to get better, then they're going to want more.
Yeah, because how many of us, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just
no,
want
that's
to say,
okay.
how many of us work with retirees who, once they fully retire, think that now they have all this time and they're going to practice more and they're going to play more and their game's going to get better. And within a year, they hate their game and they actually got worse. Right?
Well, I hope none of mine.
Right. Well, or I shouldn't say they get worse, but they're more frustrated. In other words, they think they should be dropping 10 strokes in their handicap. Maybe it only moved down 3.
Right. And that's where we can help them, right? That's where we can go out with them on the golf course and figure out what their strategies are and why that's happening. And, we just did this last week, and I went out with a couple of our members, and, it was really fascinating to me watching them on the course versus on the range. When you see them on different lies and different situations, and obviously tighter fairways puts the stress on and the pressure on. But what was really fascinating with these 2 particular members that I was out with was, they absolutely love their sand wedge, which for both of them, ironically, was about a 70-yard full shot.
Mm-hmm.
But on par 5s from where they were playing from, they kept throwing themselves into the 40-yard throw-up zone, right? So, and they told me, I just hate this shot. And I just looked at them and I said, what's really fascinating to me is, you hit your 5-wood down here, and you've got a 19-degree hybrid in here. How about we hit the 19-degree hybrid, leave yourself back at the shot you love, and let's see what happens. And I think just moments like that as a coach, where you see this light bulb go off and they say to you, gosh, I just try to get it as far as I can get it and as close as I can get it all the time, which is great if you're really good from close. And that's what I say back to them. I said, but you know what? You guys are pretty bad from 40. So we got to work on 40. I'm not saying you're not going to get better at 40. We got to work on 40, but can we for now not leave ourselves in 40 and let's leave ourselves back at 70 where you're really confident? And it was like, I'd given them an epiphany. It sounds so simple when we say it together tonight, but That's the way I tell people all the time, like golf for competitive players is a series of moves. And golf for most players is just a series of hits.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't think they're good enough to think about it in moves when really they are. They have a favorite club. They have a favorite shot. Um, Leave yourself with a favorite club. Leave yourself as you can, and as you get better, leave yourself with the shots you like best until you improve the others. And you'll find your scores will drop. I mean, that's why we always see in those 4-club tournaments, we typically see people shoot lower scores. And they shoot lower scores because they pick their 4 favorites and went out and played the game a whole different way than they typically do with all 14. So it's just something for people to think about.
Yeah, very eye-opening. I remember when I was working on my game to go play professionally on a tour level, not the club level. A friend of mine was playing. He had his tour card then, and he told me, he said, go out with your tee off with your driver, your 3-wood, and your 3-iron for 9 holes, and play all 3 balls for all 9, and you might surprise yourself. And I'll be damned if I didn't shoot consistent, where it was very eye-opening. The 3-iron was almost consistently lower than the other 2.
Yeah.
No, that was a long time ago. That was before the bomb and gouge era, and there was still a lot of balls. And I think
You're dating yourself because you said
right,
3-iron.
Right. I think the Titleist Tour Prestige was like the long ball back then. Right. That's how long ago that was.
Yep, exactly. I'm not going to say I played a Bellata.
But to your point, it made you play a little bit more chess in your brain to position yourself to, okay, on par 5s, for example, I'm not just going to, my tee shot's only going to be so far. Now I'm going to put my next shot where I'm good, where my third shot is going to be somewhere where I'm very comfortable and I can accomplish what I want to. But it's almost eye-opening. And I mean, I was a decent accomplished player in the section and locally, and I had no idea about that.
Yeah, I told one of my female students a couple months ago. So she was complaining about some of the short par 4s, which were 310, 330 yard, somewhere in between there. She, I'm just really struggling. I keep making doubles. And I said, well, how far do you hit your 7-iron? She said, well, like 110 yards. And I said, well, do you hit it pretty straight? Yeah, I hit it straight all the time. I hit it perfectly. I said, so what if we just went 7-iron, 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 and you 2-putted, right? That's 5.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, what? I go, well, let me just, okay, so you're hitting driver and maybe missing the next and hitting the next left and chipping on and then 2-putting for 6. I said, because right now that's just in your head. I said, what if we just hit, 3 7-irons onto the middle of the green and you 2-putt for 5? So if we did that on 5 of the par 4s, we just lowered your score by 5. So you just went from 95 to 90. She's like, what? Can you do that? Right?
It's
and
amazing,
not making fun of her, not making fun of that. Can you do that? Because for in as people learn the game, they think they have to hit the driver off the tee. They think they have to hit you don't have to do anything. What your job is to get the ball in the hole in the fewest amount of shots, however that may be or look. And when people are empowered to make that choice without a fear of embarrassment because they hit that shot great, I mean, their scores plummet.
Mm-hmm. They start making big jumps in improvement.
Big jumps in improvement.
What as we get close to the winding down on the time that we have, what's the drives you to do so much and continue to do these new things?
I think watching the game evolve. I think the people I get to be with in my workspace, whether it be at the club at Mirasol or whether it be with PGA, I truly love what I do, and I love being involved in sports. I love being involved in golf. I'm super biased, but it's the greatest game, and there's never a day that goes by that I can't learn something from somebody that's in it. There's never a day that goes by that I can't get better at it,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm certainly not there yet. And so for me, it's the constant challenge of growth. It's the challenge of pushing myself, but also the challenge of making effective change within a sport that has so much room and so much potential.
And you're doing some, like I said when we started, you are doing some great things on that route. And I think you look long and hard to find somebody to disagree with that.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Do you see yourself as a role model?
I just came off our inaugural women's PGA Cup, and we had 5 amazing women competing on that who had earned their spot on the team as PGA professionals over the course of the last 2 years. And, when I was with them and captaining the team, and I'm not sure I felt like a role model. I just think I felt older. I think I felt more experienced than them. And I don't mean to be like shoving the role model thing off, because it's, when anybody ever calls me that, it's an incredible honor to be anybody's role model. I think our job as leaders is to help people succeed. But to do that, I do think you have to showcase behavior, and I think you have to also push and mentor and sponsor people that are coming behind you so that they do the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I would call myself just more experienced at this point than some of our younger female PGA professionals, and I cherish that. I cherish the fact that they ask me things about their careers and choices they've made, and it felt great to be able to provide some insight to them, perhaps that they hadn't thought of before, but also to showcase to them that, as we progress and as we go, it can't be about gender. It needs to be about performance. It needs to be about drive. It needs to be about what we want to accomplish for the game and the association. The game's not going anywhere. The game will be here long after any of us. But how can we make it and leave it a little better when we go? And that's what I challenge them to do. And so for anybody, I would do the same. But it was sure great fun capturing them and feeling like, they were looking to me for a little of that experience and that advice. That was fun.
What would you tell a youngster out there that might be listening to this? Let's say they're 10, 12, 13 years old that wanted to become the next president of the PGA or the next Suzy Whaley. What advice would you give to the youngsters out there listening that might be listening?
I would tell them, in the moment they're in and what they're trying to accomplish, be the absolute best you possibly at it, whatever it takes. So whether it's in your English class, whether it's on the golf course, whether it's with your family doing chores, whatever it might be, if you are meant to sweep the floor that day because that's on your chore chart, you should be the best sweeper that ever lived on the chore chart. And I find that it's good to have goals. I get that. It's good to say I want to be an Olympian, like I said earlier. But I think what my parents gave me that I cherish, and what I try to give my children and anybody else who cares to listen to what I have to say, is what I tried to do and still try to do is I try to strive for excellence in whatever it is I'm doing. So if I'm coaching somebody for an hour, I do everything in my power to be the most excellent I can be at it. It doesn't mean I always get that done. It doesn't mean I'm always good at it. There are days that, I feel like I'm a great coach, and there's days that I'm like, gosh, I could have been so much better today. But in the moment, I am 100% trying to be the best I can be at it. If I'm cleaning my house, it's the same way. So I just tell young people to follow their passion, find something you love to do, and enjoy the experience of maybe not being the best at it yet, but striving to be the best at it then.
That's some really good advice. What's the next challenge for you? So after your term's up, I mean, you were secretary, then you're president, and I mean, what follows that? What are you going to do after that?
Yeah, I hope I'm still involved in some way. I can't even imagine not giving back to the PGA of America that's given me so much, and my husband so much, both of us being members for a long time. And so for me, I will always, I hope, be a part of the sport and the game in a way that contributes. And I really look forward to that. I won't travel as much. I'll coach more and still love it. So for me, it'll still be golf, and it'll still be something I wake up joyful to do every day.
Sounds like a pretty good plan. You want to wrap up with a little bit of rapid fire?
Sure, go.
All right. Let's see what we
so
got. Some people wrote in. Well, it's just whatever pops in your mind. There's no right or wrong answer, right?
Okay.
Dream foursome. Anybody, past or present?
This is so cliche for me, but it'd be my family.
Hey, it's a very good answer. No one's going to fault you for that. If you could have anybody swing throughout history, who would it be?
Mickey Wright.
You're the first one to ask that. And I've been waiting for somebody to answer that. You're the first one to answer that when I've been waiting for someone, because you listen to Brandel or some of these guys who follow history of the game, and they always bring up Mickey Wright, and not a whole lot of other people do. But I'm glad you
Best
did.
golf swing ever. Ben Hogan said it. You can go through multiple. They all. We don't have to debate Mickey Wright because she's amazing. But if people haven't seen her swing or haven't looked at her swing or studied her swing, they should.
Right. Absolutely. It should be in every coach's or instructor or person that wants to teach that they should study her swing.
Swing the Right Way is the name of her book. WRIGHT.
I'll put that in the show notes for anyone that wants to, that might not have caught it. You don't have to rewind it.
There you go.
Any celebrity numbers in your phone right now?
Yes.
Okay, we're not going to press you for who, because we don't want you. We don't want to. No other celebrities will give you their number if you tell us who.
Correct.
Walking or riding?
Walking.
If you could caddy for any professional golfer, who would it be?
Kelly Whaley.
And have you done that yet?
Yes, I caddied for her at tour school.
And no arguments?
No.
It's even better.
Isn't that shocking?
I was waiting for you to say, well, there was this one time, but no, that's pretty cool.
That is shocking.
Well, I think that's good that she listens to Mom.
Yeah, my second one would be Joanne Carner.
Let's see. A few more if you have a minute or a couple minutes.
Okay.
Bucket list courses.
Oh, bucket list courses. That I've already played or that I want to play?
That you want to play. That you haven't
played. That I want
to
play. I haven't played Bandon Dunes. I would love to play there. San Francisco Golf Club. Olympic.
Heard that's really good.
This could be a lengthy list, so let's just go with those three.
Last book you read?
Dare to Lead.
Here's one I've asked everybody, and it's about 50-50. Greatest of all time, as far as the men's concerned, because that seems to be the big topic. Jack or Tiger?
Oh, God. Tiger.
Okay. I was going to say you can pass, but I didn't want to get you off the hot seat. Let's see, just about two more. Biggest pet peeve?
Slow play.
I'm with you there. And last one, your favorite golf course?
Cypress.
Ooh, that's high on a lot of people's lists. Hey, Suzy, this has been awesome. I've known you for a number of years. We've always had great conversations. I'm glad that a lot of people, I hope, are going to get to hear this one so they can hear all the cool stuff that you have and that you're doing. You're a great representative and the beacon for the PGA, and I can't thank you enough for doing this.
It's a pleasure. It was great chatting with you. I hope you're great, and thanks so much for spreading the word about the great game of golf. We sure appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say.